What it's like to control every level of a city's underground economy. Level 1, the corner. The envelope is already open when it reaches you. $23 short, you count it twice, then a third time. You already know what this means, but you count it anyway because part of you still wants to be wrong. You're not wrong. You've been working this block for 6 weeks. You know the faces, you know the hours, you know which cop rolls past at 11:40 p.m. and which one stops. You know that the guy with the green Camry is always good for it. And you know that the woman who comes every Tuesday afternoon is stretched too thin, but she'll pay double next week to keep the peace. You know all of this, and it still doesn't protect you from the fact that $23 is missing and someone has to answer for it. That someone is you. You hand the envelope back without arguing. You make up the difference from your own cut. You don't explain yourself. You don't look anywhere but forward. That's the first rule you learn. The shortage is always yours. The block operates on a simple math. Product comes down from above. You move it, you collect, you hand up. Whatever's left is yours. In theory, this sounds clean. In practice, the margins are thin and the variables are human. Weather, police, rivalries, addiction cycles, they all eat into the number, and none of that is anyone's problem but yours. You make $400 in a good week, less in a bad one. You sleep on a cousin's couch. You don't carry a phone registered to your name. You learn that quickly. The thing nobody tells you at level 1 is that it's not dangerous in the way you expected. There's no initiation moment, no dramatic crossing of a threshold. You were one thing, then you needed money, then you were this. That's all it took. You watch the older guys who run 3 or 4 corners. They dress the same as you, same shoes, same posture, same blank faces, but their eyes are different, older somehow, not harder, just further away. Tell yourself you'll do this for 3 months. Level 2, the collector. 3 months becomes 8. You're not on the corner anymore. Now you move between corners. You collect, you verify, you settle disputes that don't rise to the level of actual confrontations. Just small tensions, discrepancies, personality conflicts that, if left alone, become larger problems. You carry a notebook, not a phone, a notebook. Every collection gets written down in a code only you understand. Dates, amounts, initials, a system you built yourself over time without anyone telling you to. That's when you realize you're a certain kind of person, the kind that builds systems without being asked. Your cut is now $1,100 a week plus a small percentage of overages when a corner beats its weekly number. You're clearing close to $4,500 a month and none of it touches your name. The work is mostly logistics. Moving money is harder than moving product. Product doesn't lie. Money does. People short it. People round it. People convince themselves they moved less than they did. Your job is to know the actual number before they tell you a number. That knowledge is leverage. You learn fast that leverage is the only real currency. One afternoon, a runner named Darius tells you he's $600 short because a customer robbed him. Maybe it's true. Maybe it isn't. You've heard the story before with different names. You look at him for a long time. Then you tell him he has 72 hours to make it whole, or you bring it up the chain. He makes it whole in 48. You don't feel good about it. You don't feel bad about it. You feel like someone who did their job. That's the shift. The moment you stop feeling things and start just completing tasks. It happens gradually. You don't notice it happening. You only notice it later when you reach for an emotion and find a space where it used to be. You still tell yourself you're going to leave. You just don't say when anymore. Level 3, the operator. You run 2 territories now, 14 corners, 6 runners per territory, 2 collectors under you. You don't touch product. You haven't touched product in over a year. Your hands are clean in the technical sense. You have a legitimate job. A landscaping company, licensed and payrolled, that handles 3 commercial properties. It makes $62,000 a year on paper. In reality, it's a structure, a place for money to pass through on its way to becoming ordinary. You drive a used Chevy Tahoe, nothing new, nothing that invites attention. You understand now that the ones who get caught are usually the ones who couldn't resist being visible. You have a phone for business. It's a burner, replaced every 21 days. You have another phone for your family. They don't know each other exist. The operational details are constant. Supply disruptions, staff problems, territory friction, a block on the east side trying to expand into your margins. You solve most of this through information, knowing what's happening before it becomes a problem. The rest you solve through reputation. By level 3, your reputation is doing most of the work. There's a younger runner, 17, who's fast and smart and reminds you of yourself. You watch him work for 2 weeks. Then you pull him up to collector. His mother works 2 jobs. He sends her money every month and doesn't tell her where it comes from. You recognize that calculation because you made the same one. You don't sleep well, not because you're afraid, because your brain won't stop running numbers, roots, contingencies, variables. It's not anxiety, it's optimization. But your body doesn't know the difference. You're 26 years old. You have $180,000 in cash distributed across 3 locations. You have no retirement plan. You have no exit plan. You have a system that runs well and that terrifies you when you imagine what happens if any part of it fails. Level 4. The architect. Someone above you gets arrested. The arrest is clean. A federal case, tight, no cooperation. He's gone for 12 years minimum. The territories he managed don't stop operating. They just need a new hand. That hand is yours. You are now responsible for 6 territories, roughly 80 people, directly or through layers. A weekly flow of product worth $340,000 at street level. You don't calculate your own cut anymore. It's a percentage of a percentage, diffuse enough to be difficult to trace, substantial enough to be generational wealth if you survive. You have 2 lawyers on retainer, not criminal lawyers. They're civil attorneys who know which questions not to ask. They handle the legitimate business interests you've continued to build. A car wash, a small apartment complex, 2 barbershops. You don't meet with people unless necessary. Communication happens through layers. There are people whose entire job is to be between you and the problem. You make decisions that affect people you've never met and will never meet. That's the first time the scale of it becomes real to you. Not the money, not the power, the reach. You sign off on something and somewhere, blocks away, a man's life changes. He doesn't know you exist. You'll never know his name. At level 4, you stop thinking in days and weeks. You think in quarters. You think in risks. Everything is a risk calculation. The federal heat in the city this season, the reliability of the supply chain, the loyalty of the people 3 layers below you. Every variable has a probability, and every probability carries a consequence. You fire someone, indirectly, through a chain of messages, for skimming $11,000 over 4 months. You never raise your voice. You simply close a door, and it stays closed. The 17-year-old you promoted 2 years ago is now running his own territory. You watch his numbers and feel something you can't quite name. Not pride. Something older than pride. Level 5. The broker. The underground economy doesn't exist in a vacuum. By level 5, you understand that the real operation is not product and corners and runners, it's relationships, with people who move money across jurisdictions, with business owners who need volume to justify their cash flow, with city employees who approve permits and look at the right things and away from the others. None of this is spoken directly. It doesn't have to be. You attend a fundraiser for a city council candidate. You write a check from one of your legitimate companies. It's legal. The amount is reported. Later, you have a conversation at an event, and the conversation is about zoning. Zoning is always about zoning. You are not corrupt in any way you would name if asked, but you understand now how the visible and invisible economies breathe together, how official systems have pressure valves, and those pressure valves need people to manage them. You are one of those people. Your income is now primarily laundered into real property. You own or co-own 14 residential units, a small commercial strip, and a stake in a restaurant group. Your declared income is $290,000 a year. Your actual resources are unmeasurable by design. You eat dinner with your family on Sundays. Your children are in private school. Your spouse does not ask about work. This arrangement is not a lie. It is a structure, and you both understand that the structure keeps everyone safe. You sleep 7 hours a night. You work out every morning. You have the discipline of a man who knows that the body is the last variable he can fully control. The numbness is complete now. You don't call it numbness. You call it clarity. Level 6. The shadow. You're not in the city anymore. Not officially. You moved 40 minutes out. A house on 3 acres, gated, quiet. You come into the city for specific purposes and leave without patterns. You don't have a standing schedule. You don't have a standing anything. By level 6, the system runs without your hands on it. You've built redundancy into every layer. If one person disappears, the next person knows what to do. If one territory collapses, the surrounding territories absorb it. You've made yourself architecturally invisible, present in the structure but not on any surface. 3 people in the city know your actual role, not your name in connection to your role. Your role. Everybody else knows pieces. That's by design. The conversations you have now are not about operations. They're about the future, about which neighborhoods are being gentrified and what that does to distribution networks, about which city contracts create opportunities, about which federal priorities are shifting, and what that means for enforcement patterns over the next 18 months. You think like a city planner who happens to work in a different kind of infrastructure. You have a man, and you've known him for 11 years, who is your one direct link to the operation. He knows what you want without you telling him. You trust him with your life. You know this is a structural weakness. You can't fix it. Some risks are human. Your oldest child asked you once what you do. You said, business, real estate. They nodded. They're 14 years old, and they probably know that's not the full answer. They don't ask again. You recognize the pattern. You learned the same way. You go to bed some nights and lie in the dark, counting things that aren't numbers, faces, names, decisions. You don't regret the decisions. You just account for them, the way an engineer accounts for weight load, not moral judgment. Structural review. Level 7. The untouchable. There's a moment when you realize no one is coming for you, not because you're protected, though you are, but because you've become too structurally integrated to remove cleanly. You're embedded in legitimate institutions. Your money has moved through enough hands to be unrecognizable. The people who could connect you to anything are either unavailable or wouldn't survive the conversation. You're not a criminal at this level. You're a fact. You're in your mid-40s. You have the posture of a man who has not been afraid in a long time, not arrogance, something quieter. You know what the world actually is. That knowledge shows up in small ways, in the way you listen, in the way you wait. You get a call that a federal investigation has been looking at a money movement pattern connected distantly through 3 degrees to your structure. You don't panic. You make 2 phone calls, one to a lawyer, one to someone who knows the investigator. The pattern gets more complicated. The investigation refocuses. You never appear anywhere in it. A week later, you take your family on a 10-day trip to Portugal. It costs $38,000. You pay cash routed through a legitimate account. It's a vacation, nothing else. The people below you who know your name know it like you know the name of a weather system. Distant, powerful, structural, not personal. You have given more money to community organizations in the last 3 years than most of those organizations' budgets. Level 8. The architect in the silence. You're 52. The operation is not yours anymore in any operational sense. You transitioned it over 4 years. Slowly, carefully, the way you would transfer ownership of a building. You chose successors. You structured the inheritance. You removed yourself from every layer except the very top, and then you removed yourself from that too. What you have now is output. Income flows through structures so clean they've been audited twice. Your real estate, your private equity, you're a portfolio. On paper, you're a successful businessman who started with nothing and built carefully over decades. That story is true. It's just incomplete. You live half the year in a place no one connects to you. You've changed your patterns so many times there are no patterns. You have no social media presence. You have 3 phones, each serving a different version of your life. You don't make decisions anymore. You made the decisions years ago. The architecture runs them. Sometimes you get a question passed through several hands, arriving with context stripped away, that requires a yes or a no. You answer. The answer moves back through the layers. Something happens in the world. You never see the consequence directly. You think sometimes about the corner, the envelope, the $23. You think about the runner now in his 30s who is running territories you used to own. He doesn't know you. You know everything about him. You chose him. You watch his numbers the way a landlord watches a building, not involved but invested. You sit in a garden in the evening. The air is quiet. Your children are grown. Your spouse is inside the business. The real one, the invisible one, is running somewhere in a city you grew up in, 3 time zones away. You feel nothing about this. That is the final evolution. Not cruelty, not pride, just distance. The emotional range compressed down to a single flat line of awareness. You built something that will outlive you. That will outlive your name. That will keep running long after anyone who knows your face is gone. That's what level 8 is. Not power, permanence.